Hi, Melanie Moore here from Business Tech Ninjas. Today we're going to talk about moving your community off of Facebook and on to Fluent Communities. You could be looking at moving generally over to any sort of platform on WordPress. You could also be looking at potentially moving to a platform option like Circle, or there's a couple other ones out there as well. There's reasons for why I recommend WordPress as opposed to any other platform options, but that is a story we'll get into another day. Today's story is about moving specifically off of Facebook and why you might want to do that, why you might not want to do that, depending on the stage that you are in business, what happened, surprises that we had along the way, and a good structure for how you might be thinking about how to do this if you're looking at moving off of Facebook and onto honestly any platform. The process is kind of the same, but there will be some nuance in this video of specifically what you're going to want to look for when you're working with Fluent Communities. So to start off with, what's the problem? Like, why move off of Facebook in the first place? Generally, people start with Facebook because it's easy. People are already there. It's easier to develop a community on Facebook and get some good momentum forward of people engaging because they're already there. Now, as you scale, of what we see with our seven-figure businesses is that at times what happens when you get around that 1,000, 2,000 person community, you get a lot of people that aren't really there for the community. They're just kind of looking to stir poop, shall we say? And you get a lot of noise in your community. So your business might be about, completing your certification for becoming an accountant or an IT asset management, or we have people in the weight loss community too. People will kind of just come in and talk about random other things that are not necessarily related back to the business, which puts a pretty big burden on the business to be moderating those types of comments and different things. So at that point, we see businesses say, okay, hey, I want to move my community off of Facebook onto my own platform. The other big reason is people more and more don't want to be on Facebook because of privacy reasons and just not wanting to be in that dumpster fire, if I'm completely honest. And it's nice to have your own platform. You also just don't have any control. They could shut you down tomorrow. You just don't know. So there's a little bit more control over having your own platform as well. So we have this conversation many times with clients of like, when do you move off of Facebook? And I think a lot of it is, do you have enough of a community that you can move that momentum onto another platform? If you are crickets on your Facebook community, honestly, moving it to another platform is not going to matter one way or the other. You don't have enough community drive. I do like Facebook to kind of start and get a community going for a number of different reasons. But it's always an interesting conversation. And we do offer a service as Business Tech Ninjas to really chat that through with you of like what makes the most sense for you, given where your business is at, of when do you start, where do you start, and where do you go is kind of the question mark. So with this particular client, we did want to move off of Facebook. The other major reason for why is the amount of administration the social community was taking. Everybody had to be manually added and removed, which put a huge burden on the business. Otherwise, you get this like massive amount of people in this group that's maybe not the greatest option in the entire world. So moving to Fluent Communities meant that we could automatically add people, remove people depending on their access, and bring them in onboarding and be able to track their of what they're doing as well. So we want to be able to see like who's engaged, who's not engaged, who's actually in the community or not in the community. And you can see it within Facebook. It's just difficult to systematize that you can actually create a system around it. Somebody has to kind of like really manually monitor that going forward. So our plan is, I see this all the time, both within myself and then other business owners as well, is that you always want to get things done as quickly as possible. I think in general, when you're looking at something of this scale and size, you're looking at least 3 months. And that's not like 3 months focused time. That's planning time. Actual implementation is really only about a month, I would say, of like really like working on it and focusing it. And then that last month is kind of covering it off, tweaking, making sure like optimizing type idea. This one took longer. It took about, I think, it was 6 months to a year on this one. And a lot of that was because of other things that they had going on in the business, of other priorities, competing priorities coming in there, and really wanting to give the time for the members to kind of like get okay with it to some degree. I'm always a big fan of you'd rather go slower and have a better outcome than try to go quicker and then have that outcome not be as good. What do I mean? In the social community, nobody moves over, everybody hates it. Not great. So with this one, the way to iterate it is one, do a version 1. Fluent Communities is it's not hard to get that initial setup, but like tweaking it and making it work specifically for your business does take a little bit of time and knowledge. That's why you want to use a technologist. And then the second one would be get some beta users in there. You want to get some team members, but also some of your actual customers. Like usually you're really the customers that just love you. You want to put them in there, get their feedback, tweak it from there. And then we do generally do like a staged portion over a month. Um, Sometimes less, sometimes it can be a week. It just depends on the type of business and your particular community. A month is probably the longest. My ideal would be about a week to say, okay, hey, we have this week kind of window. We're going to move everybody over, and you'll have access to it. We'll have both in there, but it can be less or more just depending on the company. And before that, you want to be sending out emails and notifications both on Facebook and through email, just letting them know something's coming, really focusing in on the benefits of moving to the new platform. The biggest mistake that I see is that people get too much on the negative, like Facebook's bad because of this, this, and this, and that's why we're moving platform, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, focus on all the new things that they're going to be able to do. Focus on all the new features and new functionalities and how much easier it's going to be for them of really focusing in on that positive to help them move with a little bit of a tinge of, and this is the pain that you're no longer gonna have to feel, is the other part to that. And then once you're in your community, you really want to focus on integrating your community with your content. Of give specific people specific things to do throughout your content to send them back to the community. Post your thoughts on this in the community. Do this. One of the other really big mistakes that I see is that people will have too many places for people to post. They can post on the course or on the topic, and then also in the community, but there's 5 different threads they can post it in the community. It's like give people one spot. And there are ways to mitigate that down if it becomes too crowded, but that's usually like a later problem. Give people one spot, get them engaged, and then work with the problem if you have too much going on potentially in that community. So you want to build engagement in there. You want to have a cheerleader, and you want to really have somebody like that's focused on building that. So it's kind of like the overview of like, moving over. And this generally applies to any movement from Facebook or from any platform, any community switches. But let's get into like Fluent Communities specifically now. Now I'm going to share my screen. I love Fluent Communities. We've worked a lot with BuddyBoss. I hate it deeply, passionately. We still do tolerate it, but I don't recommend it now to any new clients coming in. It's just we spend more time trying to strip out the features and functionalities and make it work, and their support's not very good. It's just not worth the time. Fluent Communities, we can do a working block with a client for 500 bucks US and get it set up and get that version 1 up for clients right away. So we do a little bit of prep work before we jump on the call. We customize it for them on the call, and a lot of the times they just run with it after that. Or sometimes if they have a more complex integration, then we'll do like some working blocks after that and work it through with them. But it's a pretty good setup overall, assuming that you're a technologist and you're kind of familiar with this stuff. The one thing to note about Fluent Communities is that on most WordPress plugins, they will have something like they work within the WordPress kind of infrastructure or how posts and pages work. And it makes it so that a lot of plugins and different integrations just work out of the box. So what I mean by that is like when you go to a different plugin, they'll often have some form of a sidebar here, or their plugin will offer their tools or whatever. So a good example is like LearnDash here. You can see like the LearnDash settings are directly on this page. Trying to see Membarium is a membership plugin that we use really regularly. You can see all of their settings over here. This is very common in the WordPress world. Fluent Communities is built a little bit differently where they have their own and they've just coded it where they have their own kind of portal settings, which is a benefit because they have more control and it does make it easier to use in a lot of ways, but it's a downside because some of the integrations are just not out of the box necessarily. So if you're gonna go in here, you go into portal settings. One of the things that I have seen weird is like you can update the change URL here, but for whatever reason, it just like doesn't like take a lot of the time. I've updated it on like 5 or so different installs and I've had to like revert it back and call their support. I don't know, hopefully they've fixed it now, but that is like a weird little thing that I see. So generally we just like we just make it so it's the default to avoid that at this point in time. And the settings are just really, pretty straightforward. There's a title, you have your logo, you can do light, dark, whatever else, portal access, login registration. You do want to be a little bit aware with this of if you're using another membership tool or platform of how that integration is going to work. We use Membarium a lot. We also use Paid Memberships Pro a lot, WP Fusion, and it's been a pretty smooth integration, but you just want to make sure that their plugin, the settings on Fluent Communities isn't overriding anything on there. Customizations are quite nice as well. You can do account access directly through Fluent CRM, but they have a really cool functionality where you can actually send an HTTP post from your whatever CRM that you're using. We use Keep, we use HubSpot, we use ActiveCampaign, we use Go High Level, that we can send it from there and give or remove access using that what we call a webhook. So access management is actually pretty easy, and you can see that just over here, like incoming webhooks of like what these different things potentially mean. Menu settings are really good too. Content moderation. Honestly, there's not a lot on here right now, and like it's pretty robust. One of the main things that I really like about this is it sends a community digest, which is something that we've always wanted from BuddyBoss, and they're like, that's cute. We have no way to do that. It does it right out of the box with Fluent Communities. And I think that that is really nice, for me as a community member and being a lot of the communities, like I don't want to have to like read through your whole community all the time. It's nice to get that digest all the time. And they do have some analytics on here. So this is pretty good. Like it's not like the most granular thing in the entire world, but you can see like their engagement has just been steadily going up since we launched it. We did like a beta user. It's actually pretty cool. I actually looked at this, I'm gonna admit. But it's nice to get that little bit of feedback of like, how are we doing overall. When you go into the actual community itself, there's like a general overall page, which is very much like a Facebook-esque. You can see all of the different groups on here. And like, if I'm a member of all these groups, all of the things that are posted in those different groups will all show up here. I like the posting functionality too. You can add pictures, videos. I don't know what this is. Oh, there's a poll option. I'd probably just remove that. I don't think anyone actually uses it. And then you can use emojis, which are always really nice. And then you have to select a space because you can't like post directly on the feed because the feed is just like an overall accumulation of everything that's in here. And then you can also include just like general links back to your WordPress site, and then some other links down here. So these are all like the different feeds of like where people can post, and then it will all show up over here too. And then those are what you called spaces. So it's all the different spaces of where people can potentially post in the community. There's a members and then there's a leaders board option too. And there are a couple other things I think we have turned off on this one that you can see is do customizations, and you can add some CSS code if you want to as well. Email settings, what is it? Features. So you have leaderboard. So you can see like all the different things. Like we don't have the courses enabled. I don't love the idea of using their courses. Like if you have really simplistic courses, throw it in there, why not? But if you're going to be doing courses, especially if you're already on a WordPress platform, you're going to want to use a specific LMS. LearnDash is probably is the most popular. I really like Sensei. It requires a little bit more setup, but it's a much cleaner code base than what LearnDash is. Tutor LMS is also pretty strong. However, it does provide a little bit less customizability than what Sensei does, and it's on par with what I'd say with the LearnDash on there too. So, gives you kind of like just an overall walkthrough of it. It's when I say it's simple with a grain of salt, simple in comparison to something like BuddyBoss. And assuming that you are familiar with tech, that's why we train people being a technologist is, people should know tech. Similarly, you want to hire a plumber, hire an electrician, hire an accountant. If you're going to have somebody working on your tech, you're going to want to work with a business technologist, not just somebody that figured it out through YouTube, because it'll save you a lot of time and a lot of headaches of not having to direct them, because nothing pains me more than hiring a plumber and him saying, so what kind of plumbing should I put into your bathroom? And it's like, this, it's your job. You're supposed to tell me. I keep thinking tubing, but I don't think that's the right term. Anyways, side note, we do a base level version 1 install of Fluent Communities. If you're interested, it's $500. We do some prep work before. You need to have a WordPress site. We include the license for Fluent Communities for a year. We'll help you get it set up. We'll train you on how to use it, give you next steps afterwards. Sometimes people need us to a little bit more help afterwards. Sometimes they just take it over and email us some questions. So if you'd like to get that set up for you, then you can contact us at businesstechninjas.com. And I hope you have had as much fun going through this as